Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our latest episode of Ikigai Essentials podcast. As we're all aware, I think May is Mental Awareness Month. So, first of all, we just want to kick it off and say Happy Mental Awareness Month. It's a special time for us, really. For me personally, it's just kind of reflecting on my mental health and how I can improve upon it. So we're going to spend a little bit of time just talking about some strategies we've employed, just kind of have an open discussion about mental health, and kind of dig a little bit deeper into some topics that we've really sparked our interest here in the last couple of weeks. I have my partner here, Oliver EK, joining me this morning, and welcome to our latest episode.
All right. Yeah. Hello, everyone. As Bill mentioned, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So there's a couple different things that, in terms of like, it's not really celebrating, but it's more. So the different kind of focuses for Mental Health Awareness Month are increasing awareness, so raising public understanding of mental health issues, their impact and potential for prevention. Reducing stigma, openly discussing mental health, stigma associated with mental illness would be reduced, encouraging individuals to seek help without fear of judgment. And that's something that, one of the reasons why we started doing this is to reduce the stigma, promoting support, providing opportunities for individuals and organizations to offer support to those struggling with mental health challenges, and advocacy for better policies. So advocating, encouraging policy changes that prioritize mental health care and access. And then finally, celebrating recovery. And that's something that Bill has kind of mentioned earlier in past episodes, recognizing the progress and resilience of individuals who have recovered from mental illness, or it could be, different recovering from things kind of that maybe promoted mental health deterioration. So it could be kind of addiction or things like that. So yeah, those are the kind of like the main things that the month is really all about. So one of the things that we're doing right now is trying to reduce stigma. But kind of based on any of the other things, Bill, is there anything that kind of comes to mind for you?
No, I think you summed it all up, Oliver. I think my biggest thing, the way I look at this month, is just being an advocate and speaking up, I should say. I know that there still is a big stigma around mental health. People are kind of shy or reluctant to get help and whatnot. But just me personally, just speaking up and sharing them my experiences, tell them that it's okay not to be okay. That's okay to seek help and therapy and just to get your mind right. I think really is just having that support network is key, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then one of the things was like talking about policy. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I don't really want to really get into politics in this format. I don't think it's the right kind of space for that. But there has been talk about kind of decreasing. Well, they're doing it. They're decreasing kind of funding to hire mental health practitioners. So there was a big push, especially in California, for more funding to train like therapists. So my day job is working in a graduate program to train social workers. So that's kind of a big part of the work that I do, and and you kind of see like the need for mental health services, and it's really nice that the government had tried to kind of fill that gap between what is available and how to meet the needs of people who have mental health issues. And it's through providing more practitioners who can help people. So right now there's more people that need help than there are people that can help them. So it's a little concerning that it's kind of rolling back from getting more people trained to help to kind of rolling that back. So I'm a little worried what that will look like going forward. Right now, like yeah, Bill and I, we both have kids. I think mine are a little older, but in middle school and up, at least in LA County, there's usually at least like one or two therapists that are kind of a part of the school staff. So like growing up, I think for us it was more like academic counseling, not really like social emotional counseling. So now,
Absolutely.
yeah, now in LAUSD at least, there's basically mental health like specialists who are there to help young kids in this really tough time, and to kind of roll that back, I think I'm a little worried about that. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Bill.
Yeah, me too. Like one thing that's really impressed me is, like Oliver said, growing up, we never had those resources, and I wish we did. There was times where I remember talking to friends or family, they just kind of brush it off and just tell me to go to sleep, wake up next morning, you'll be fine. But one thing that I've been really impressed with, with my kids' school district, and yes, they are a little bit younger than yours, Oliver, is um, there's counselors there who help with these type of situations, whether it's bullying or emotional struggles that kids are dealing with. I just read an email from the school. We get it every week, and there's like something called the Counselor's Corner. And every month they focus on something different. Like one month it was bullying, one month it was how do you deal with conflicts amongst kids, how do you deal with puberty amongst kids, and all that. And quite honestly, I've had some great discussions with my daughter. I just say her because she's older, around some of these topics. So I'm a little bit worried too. And one thing I was going to ask you, Oliver, being in that industry, seeing it firsthand, what impacts have you seen so far, right? I mean, within your organization.
Well, I mean, I think these are all kind of newly announced kind of budget cuts,
Sure.
so I don't think we've seen the impacts yet. But I mean, we're already at a place. So I would say, like during the pandemic, during like the early stages of the pandemic, if you tried to get an appointment with a therapist, the wait time was probably around 6 months.
Absolutely.
So I don't know what that looks like now, um, but like, what happened to all those people that were not able to see someone? Like, how are they kind of dealing with those things? So we have people that are trained to become you know therapists. So a lot of that government funding went to help pay for their tuition to get that license to become a therapist. So I'm assuming that means more like less people will probably pursue a graduate degree to become a therapist. That's kind of my guess.
Sure.
But yeah, it kind of remains to be seen, like in the long term, what that will look like. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, it's really interesting when we talk about. We always kind of relate it to like the Asian American experience, and so I do like I've been going to like family therapy too, and it's like really interesting the things that you kind of learn and you kind of do in those sessions. Because I think like the one kind of main takeaway for me was like feelings, right? So basically, they always like if you've anyone who's ever done therapy, you tell them about like a situation. And you're like, maybe like my boss, like reprimanded me for something that really wasn't my fault. The first question the therapist will ask you always is, and how did that make you feel? And the reason why is because so feelings are valid. So it's not like the way that you perceive feelings or the way that you kind of perceive a situation, that's subject to interpretation. But the way that you feel about something, that's valid no matter what that feeling is. And I think that's really interesting because like for us, I think growing up, and I think maybe even for men in general, it's you kind of like feelings are like only something that women experience, or you know what I mean. There's like a very kind of masculine kind of
Right.
thing where you ignore your feelings, or you bury them, or you push on. What if you're feeling sad, just like buck up, like don't men don't cry kind of thing. So um that's I mean, it's very destructive, if you kind of look at it that way. And so it just I think just when we kind of like maybe like taking a step back, like incorporating that, I think, into I don't know, into maybe curriculum or something for kids to be able to kind of just understand like feelings are valid. Like
Totally
whatever
agree.
you're feeling, it's irrefutable. Whatever your feeling is, like I may not agree with that feeling, but it's valid. So I just think it's all kind of related and really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually reminds me, like speaking of my kids' email that I get every week about the counselor corner. there was one topic about feelings, and they were talking about, if you're in the red zone, the yellow zone, or the green zone. And I thought that was very helpful for my kids and other kids as well. Because growing up, we never really had that discussion in my household, being in an Asian household. As Oliver mentioned, you're more masculine. You kind of have to buck up and just suck it up and deal with it. But that has actually helped me in my journey as well, just to understand my kids' feelings, talk to them about it. But then in return, it kind of helps me as well. So it's kind of a good cycle. I'm a little bit worried too, because if you look at it, like I haven't really been dealing with a lot of issues with insurance, healthcare coverage, and all that around mental health, therapy, and all that. But just looking at the whole landscape of healthcare in the US, it's an issue. It's not the right time to talk about that. It's not the right forum, obviously, but it's related to what we're talking about in terms of if they cut all that funding, what's going to happen next? Where are these people going to get those resources? And I think that kind of circles back to what I said earlier is I think if there still is a good support network, still people out there advocating and trying to reduce that stigma of mental health, it could help a little bit, but I just don't know how much, right? I think we still need those professionals. We still need that funding to get people on the right track.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, so again, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so that will be kind of like the topic, I think, for this month's episodes. However many we do, but
Absolutely.
we do want to kind of pull back and kind of focus in on something kind of more specific as well. Um, so yeah, I kind of came across something that I thought was really interesting. Um, so it's a book. It's called Cringeworthy: A Theory of Awkwardness, and it's by an author named Melissa Dahl. And I thought this is really interesting because it's a so so I like one of the in the description on Goodreads it says so have you ever said goodbye to someone only to discover that you're both walking in the same direction? I've totally done that.
Same.
Or had your next thought fly out of your brain in the middle of a presentation, or accidentally liked an old photo on someone's Instagram or Facebook, thus revealing yourself to be a creepy social media stalker. The book, and the book, I would say, so I read the book, and I think the original kind of description of the book like really resonated with me in that. So the examples that were just given. So the what was the first one? Oh yeah. So if you say goodbye to someone, and then you only to see that you're walking the same direction, I've done that before. And I think the interesting thing about that article or the book for me originally was like when you have like an awkward moment like that, and then even if it's 5, 10 years later, and you think about it, you almost kind of relive that awkwardness that you felt in the moment. And I think that was like a really interesting phenomena. So I
Mhm.
don't know. Is there something? Can you relate at all to that, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, those are good examples, and I haven't really experienced those, but there are times where I have like PTSD per se, right? Like flashbacks of what happened. One thing that I can think of, I always hated like public speaking. Even during the pandemic, when we were on Zoom, everything was remote. I still hated it. I just felt like people were staring at me, people were judging me, and all of that. But come the next presentation, those things always come back in my mind. I always have that flashback of that specific experience. So those are the kind of things that I've been dealing with really in terms of this. It makes me cringe. It makes me even more nervous. But I've been really just trying to find ways to try to relieve all those
Mm-hmm.
anxieties
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts through my head. I think people like, there's a saying that if you do a public speech or if you give a presentation in front of a bunch of people, always imagine that people are naked, right? It kind of eases the situation, makes you feel a little bit better. And then over time, I've learned that most of these people, they're probably listening to your presentation. I know that, but they're probably more worried about themselves than the individual speaking. They're probably more thinking about, oh, when they give a presentation next, they're going to be nervous. They're going to be judged. They're going to have all these people staring at them. So it does help the situation a little bit better, right? But it still is a big problem. Is just always have these flashbacks, always have these episodes of PTSD that come across my mind in certain situations.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had quite a bit of that. I would say. I mean, I can relate to those instances. But I mean, to kind of dissect. So what in the book, like I think it kind of, well, I mean, cringe and feelings of awkwardness, I guess, are pretty much the same feeling. But so, like in the book, she kind of goes out and kind of seeks out like awkwardness and to kind of help her better cope with it. So I think that her theory is like the more you're exposed to awkwardness, the less it will affect you. Like speaking, like the more you speak in public, like for you, like public speaking, the more you do it, like the more comfortable you
Yeah.
become. I don't know if that's true for everyone, to be honest with you, but so I'm curious to kind of hear your thoughts on this as well. But so a lot of like TV shows, like a lot of comedies, are like, you know, they that's kind of like the whole premise. Like the comedy is the base of the comedy is like awkwardness, like The Office, or like Curb Your Enthusiasm, and things like that. So like I don't know. I'm here curious to hear your thoughts. So like when I mean, we hate to kind of feel those moments, like for us, like in those moments. But why do you think some people like enjoy watching like comedies that are? Do you yourself like those kinds
Yeah.
of comedies? So what do you think it is? Like why do a lot of people enjoy like watching it, but they don't enjoy like experience it firsthand?
For me personally, I think it relates to me. Those shows relate to me, right? Like I've been in those situations, not exactly what they're doing or what they're showing on TV, but I've been in certain situations. And I think it always feels better just to see it on the other side and knowing that, okay, that was me last week. That was me in that presentation. That was me during that situation, right? So I think it just kind of eases my mind, honestly, knowing that, hey, I'm not the only one dealing with this. There's other people who are experiencing worse things, more cringeworthy situations than I am. So I think it kind of just eases my mind and puts me a little bit more at peace per se.
Hmm. And then how about how about your wife? Does she enjoy the same kind of comedies? Because some people like
She
hate those kinds of comedies as well.
she does, but I think for her it's more of just laughter.
Hmm.
She just enjoys it just to get a kick out of it, enjoys those types of shows because they're silly and funny and whatnot. I think everybody just deals with it differently. I don't think she really looks at it as a solution, I guess you can say, as something that calms her down, but something just for enjoyment or to, make time go by.
Hmm. So yeah, so how do you? I guess like how do you think we can like maybe like deal with those times when we feel like really really uncomfortable and awkward?
You
Like
know,
what are some steps that we can take?
yeah, I don't have real solid answers for this, but one thing that the article that you sent over mentioned was they talk about this being like the spotlight effect, like all eyes on you type of thing, like everybody's just focused on you. But I don't know if this is the right answer or this is a solution to all of it. But like I said earlier, it's just kind of reminding yourself saying that, hey, other people are probably have it worse than you do. One thing I could think about is like when I play golf, I'm teeing off with three other guys behind me. I hate that situation because people are staring at me. People are looking at where my ball goes, looking at how bad my shot is. But I guarantee when they go up and hit that, they probably feel the same way. They're probably going to hit it worse than I do. So that kind of helps me calm down and kind of realize that, just worry about myself, worry about my game, worry about my situation. Don't worry about what other people think.
Mm,
Easier said than done, obviously. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's kind of the approach that I've been trying to follow throughout this journey.
mm. And then maybe relating it to mental health awareness month. So for people maybe who are like down and depressed and not feeling great, I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of tie those things together. So if they're reliving a moment, maybe because like you spiral, right? When you're anxious or when
Absolutely.
you're depressed, if something happens, you catastrophize something that maybe isn't as big of a deal as it really is. It looks bad because you're kind of in a dark place. So kind of based, maybe are there lessons that we can kind of apply from? So when the author talks about if you're reliving a moment that was very awkward in the past, maybe kind of stepping outside of that a little bit, and
Hmm.
maybe it's almost like you like take like a snapshot of that moment and you kind of go inside of it and you look around you look at the surroundings, you get a little more context about the situation, and that seems to kind of lessen the impact a little bit. So I guess like relating kind of, when people are down and kind of spiraling, are there kind of overlapping kind of things that we could try, do you think, from reliving awkwardness and dealing with
Yeah.
that to kind of reliving or kind of constantly thinking about things that are getting you down?
Yeah, one thing in the article that was mentioned and actually caught my attention was, I'll just read it right now, is if your brain can't stop replaying a cringy moment, try focusing on other details. What did the room look like? What else happened that weekend? And, as a result, it may lessen the strength of the emotion tied to that memory. There's a little cartoon here that shows that this guy, his name's Gary, he's wearing like salmon pink shorts, right? He's probably embarrassed, but in his mind, he's probably trying to think about the good in all of this, think about happy things, think about positive things. And that could potentially change a person's mindset. There's times when I feel so depressed, so anxious, other mental health issues that's going on through my mind. If one little thing makes me happy, like I see my kids laugh or I hear my kids make a joke, that kind of snaps me out of it. I know everybody's different and all that, but as I mentioned, kind of focus on the other details, kind of look at different things differently, and hopefully that will ease your brain, ease your mind. I don't know if that's the right answer, but I think that's one approach that I think that's really interesting, and I think that may work for some individuals. There's times where I talked about this before with my addiction issues in the past. There's so many times I just want to, get high, but if I put my mind and think about something else, that moment goes away. Either I'll just go out for a jog, go out for a walk, lift some weights, play with my kids. If I think about those things and actually apply it, the thought of substances and getting high goes away. So just that little spark may be the thing that actually helps you and lifts you and gets you out of that funk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Another thing, the author mentioned, which is interesting, is that so if you have these moments where you still feel awkward or you feel that from something that happened in the past, um, another way to combat that would be to kind of think about like how much you've grown as a person. So you're not the same person you were when that happened. So that's definitely something you could kind of concentrate on. And it also shows that you care. You care about other people's. I mean, usually it involves other people in some way. So you care about maybe your own personal effort, your own success. Maybe you care about other people's feelings. So there's inherently, she says, there's inherently something maybe good about feeling that way because it shows that you care.
Hmm.
If you didn't care about anything, you probably would not feel awkwardness at all in any situation.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think that's an interesting takeaway as well.
Yeah. There's one thing, another thing I'll read right now is just saying, thank God I'm cringing over my past self because that suggests some personal growth. It's a reminder of how far I've come. And the way I look at it, I always remind myself constantly is I'm not perfect. I'm not God. Everybody has mistakes. And like Oliver mentioned, if you're not worried about those things, you're not worried about what other people think, you're not really growing internally. Life is all about improvements, I think. If you mess up or if you feel awkward during a presentation or whatever it is, take that as an opportunity to grow and do better next time. Again, it's always easier said than done, but those are steps that I think that
Hmm.
people could take to try to improve that situation.
Yeah, but I think you could also maybe on the flip side of that, you could also think about maybe the situation, and if you feel like you prepared really well, and you did your absolute best, and maybe it still didn't go well, then maybe at that point, I think it's okay to not care.
Sure.
At a certain point, I think, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you did your best in the moment and you put in 100% effort and it didn't go the way you wanted it to, I think that's okay. I mean, I don't think you need to, there may not be a learning moment there. Maybe
Sure.
it's like, you know what, maybe it wasn't the right audience. There could be other factors. So there may be external factors as well. It's not always about you.
Sure. But in
about what
my,
you do.
the way I look at that, that still is kind of a learning experience too, right? Like you learn that, hey, you might not be well at this, or you might have, you weren't as prepared. So those are definitely ways to look at it too, if you flip that around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so for people out there maybe thinking, kind of lost in, your feelings or your thoughts about things that have happened in the past, those are some ways that hopefully you can kind of look at it and, you know, um, hopefully you're in a better place now, and you've grown as a person, and that's all we can really do in life, right? Is
For
kind of learn
sure.
from our past and our mistakes,
For
and
sure.
yeah, try to be better.
And one way that, I remind myself, and I hope people will do the same as well, is just realize and understand that everybody's awkward. Everybody has these situations. Everybody has these type of feelings in different type of situations. So you're not the only one out there, right? Usually when I'm down or depressed, I always try to put myself in other people's shoes and be like, oh, you know what? That person is probably in a worse situation I am. That kind of, puts a smile on my face. Not a smile on my face, but that kind of lifts up my spirits a little bit, knowing that, okay, you know what? I'm all right. I'll be okay. Just let me just, regroup, refocus, and kind of snap out of it. So that's always helpful, is just understanding that you're not the only one. Literally everyone that probably deals with these type of emotions and feelings in different situations.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that's kind of related to what you talked about earlier, Oliver, is one, part of mental health awareness month is to speak up, to reduce that stigma, and to show that support. And I think that really helps, is just knowing that, you're not the only one. There's other people out there in worse situations, but what can you do to try to, you know, speak up and make it more of a norm instead of a stigma?
All right, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, yeah, so in light of kind of what we talked about, so again, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So are there any things that you want to kind of do this month, Bill, to kind of focus in on in light of it?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this. Yesterday, I knew it was May, but my daughter's like, man, it's May 1st already. I was like, oh my gosh, it's May already. Time just flies. And one thing I actually thought about is, there's a couple friends, you know them, Oliver. We grew up with them. I just want to give them a call and see if they're doing okay. These guys have been struggling with addiction, substance abuse, and all of that. I know there's not much I can do to help them. I've tried to help them in the past, but just being the voice for them may just change them, or actually make them make the right move this time instead of just saying it. So that's one thing I'm going to do this month. Actually, I would probably do that today, is just make a couple calls and check in on a couple friends who have been struggling, who need probably a voice to hear and a shoulder to lean on. So that's kind of one thing I'm going to try now as we kick off Mental Health Awareness Month in May.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I think I'm gonna try is so there's this I think his name's Chris Voss. I think he used to be like the lead negotiator for the FBI in like hostage situations, but he's written some books. So like I think, I mean, I feel it when I'm working with colleagues or different kinds of people. The mood just kind of feels lower in general, more than I can remember, to be honest. But when you greet someone who's clearly not 100%, I think the first natural inclination is to say, "Oh, how you doing?" And then their first natural inclination would be to say, "Fine" or "Good," even though it's not true. So Chris Voss, he recommends, like, and I don't know if it's like to kind of build rapport, maybe, but he instead of that, he always leads with, "It looks like you're having a bad day."
Mm.
So he names the feeling. I think that's what he says. He like names the feeling, and he leads with that, and that usually will get people to open up. So that's something that I've been doing, and I've been trying to do, and it seems to work. Like, if you and the person who you're talking with, they seem to appreciate it too. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
it's not like a greeting, like how you do. It's a weird greeting, right? It's like, how are you doing, but it's not. I don't really care how you're doing. But on this side, you're saying, okay, clearly something's wrong. Do you want to talk about it? And that's kind of the introduction to that. So That's something that I've been trying and kind of leading with that. So like if you're brave, a lot of people aren't brave enough to talk about their
Absolutely.
feelings, especially if they're not doing well. So in those situations, I'm trying to lead with that. Be like, I'm not feeling great. I'm going through some things. I haven't been feeling very well. And if they have reciprocal emotions, they're more likely to share. Uh, if they
Absolutely.
don't have to be the first one.
Absolutely.
So I think in terms of like awareness, that's kind of what I've been doing.
I love it. Let me ask you this real quick, Oliver. Have you ever, like when people come up to say, "Hey, Oliver, how you doing today? How's your day?" Have you ever just been honest and tell them like, "Oh, I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a funk. I'm depressed, whatever it is." A lot of times I just go to default answer, "I'm fine," and just walk off, right? I'm just curious if you've
Yeah,
actually taken your approach.
I think it depends on the situation. Um, I think there's probably an appropriate place to kind of do that and
And
maybe
the
not do
audience
that.
too, and the right person, I guess.
The right and maybe the way they ask too. Like I think how you doing versus it looks like you're having a tough day. I think that's inviting conversation. How you doing is not really
True.
inviting conversation. So that I think there's a difference between opening a conversation and just like a standard greeting, like a hello or a good morning. So I think it kind of depends more on the context,
True.
and if they actually really want like a real answer or are they just being friendly. So I think it depends.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Anything you want to close with before we close this out?
No, we'd love to hear some feedback from the audience. If you guys have any strategies, anything you guys are trying differently this month, please shoot us a message or a comment. We'd love to hear everybody's feedback because I think, at the end of the day, it's all about having that support network. It's like going to, I don't know, the internet and finding your support group, whatnot, for certain situations. I think this really helps, that person and it'll help us as well. So we'd love to hear everybody's feedback
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we kind of have this format. We want it to be more like a conversation.
for
So
sure.
for people who, maybe aren't comfortable going to therapy or maybe don't have the means or the resources to do it, this is kind of my therapy, to be totally honest with you. Like we come in here, we have an idea of kind of what we're going to talk about, but it usually kind of just organically kind of grows from there. So we're able to kind of touch on things that maybe we didn't plan on touching on. So, we hope for any people out there listening, it's kind of the same thing for you. We feel like you're part of the conversation. We hope, there's information or there's situations that are familiar and hopefully helpful for you. So yeah, hearing from you is always good for us so that we can, provide more topics that maybe will help more people.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, we'll release a new episode soon.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Enjoy this month. We'll talk soon.